raise your glass up high. Turn it up, it's time. Tall boy on the line. Everything will last. Raise your...
Welcome back to episode 256 of the Tall Boy Radio podcast. And thank you to those of you who will be watching live on YouTube, as thank you to issues with Facebook and Instagram. We are not live on there. They aren't our issues. Zuckerberg needs to get his act together. Dave, Merry Christmas. How are you doing?
Merry Christmas to you. I'm all right. And I think it's disgraceful that Facebook can't pull the finger out. People just can't get Tall Boy Radio. It's just terrible.
I imagine it's ruined a lot of Christmases.
I would imagine that's exactly what's going on now. People are throwing turkeys out the window, taking down the decorations and putting them back in the loft where they belong.
Is it even Christmas without Tall Boy Radio? That's what people are asking. I've seen the emails. I've seen the messages. Most of them were from me and the rest were from you.
I didn't think I said anything about Christmas, did I?
No, because WhatsApp's down as well. Oh, hang on. There we go. So, yes, it is the Tall Boy Radio festive Christmas special. So, in the past, we did a very, very serious episode. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later about the Malcott murder a few years ago. This little less serious. We're looking at how Coca Cola shaped Christmas. Are you familiar with this story?
Coca Cola shaping Christmas. They are didn't they sort of rebrand Santa in the early sort of 1930s or something around there?
They did. In fact, there's a fella by the name of Rui Casagrande who claims actually that they went a little bit further than that. Actually, he claims that basically they invented Santa. The modern idea of Santa today is entirely the product of the Coca-Cola marketing board.
Modern, as in the cheery, rather portly chap with a beard.
No, that's me. I'm on about Santa, who's the chap behind me.
I couldn't tell any difference. You're only you're almost there, Adam. You just need a red coat and a big black belt, and you'll be sorted.
That's it. Absolutely. Listen, it's what I've asked him for this Christmas, that's for sure. So Roy claimed that basically the idea of Santa, they took a saint by the name of Saint Nicholas, who was about to be decanonized because he hadn't done any miracles in a long, long while. They mixed him with the idea of this Dutch fella by the name of Santa Claus, and then, for good measure, chucked in Kris Kringle, who was, according to him, a Danish a chimney sweep, and who would break into people's houses and steal presents and steal things from inside their chimney. So I thought, do you know what? That is interesting. Because like yourself, I was very aware that they'd sort of rebranded Santa. So I decided to have a little look into this and find out it's absolute tosh what this fella, he's put this video out there. None of it is true. None of it's true at all. So I thought we'd examine that and we'd put right some wrongs, and the good old Santy can go on unhindered by his links to Coca-Cola, and more to the point, the information shared by Rui Casagrande. So St. Nicholas then. So how long has St. Nicholas been? How long have we been aware of St. Nicholas for?
Now, if I've done my research, I could give you the actual answer, but I've got no idea. 212 years.
Well, it's a little bit longer than that. So he's been around since 240 AD. So around
That's
about
what I
18
meant. I was going for 212 AD. Did you mishear me?
Yeah, I thought actually when you first started saying it, I thought, Christ, it actually has done
So that's quite a long time then. Nearly just over 2,000 and a quarter years.
Indeed.
That's not the number, is it?
2,000. No, it doesn't matter. We know where you're coming from. But yeah, so he's been around a little bit longer than Coca-Cola, which was invented by John Pemberton in Atlanta in, do you know which year?
1918.
Not a million miles away again. 1886, same year that the Arsenal were founded.
Okay, and they're in red as well.
Indeed, red and white as well. What was
came
going
first?
on? It's a good question, actually. Well, actually, Arsenal weren't playing in red and white then.
Well, okay.
We played like a burgundy back then. Do you know why Arsenal play in red and white, by the way?
Because they were founded the same year.
It's Coca-Cola, no.
The same year as Coca-Cola. No.
No, we played a game against Nottingham Forest and we forgot our strip. So they lent us the red strip and we put white tape around the arms. And that's where the red and white Arsenal strip comes from, yeah.
And did they make the decision to change at that point? Did somebody just go, yeah, that's much nicer than burgundy?
Yeah, it must have been. It must have been. And it was, it was sort of one of those things that maybe, it brought us. Look, it's like little things like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have on their helmet. If you look at most American football helmets, they have the image on both sides. The Steelers have it on just one because they tried it out for 1 year and they had a really good season. So they just left it as it is after that.
They had another good year since.
They've had a lot of good years since. I mean, it's not the Chicago Bears, who guys will tell you are bloody awful. So anyway. Yeah, so St. Nicholas. So as we've established now, St. Nicholas, been around a lot longer than Coca-Cola. And we'll get to Santa Claus in a minute. But the other one then, Kris Kringle, the Danish chimney sweep that he tells the story of. Are you familiar with this Danish story?
I've never heard of Kris Kringle. Is it anything to do with crisps?
It's not. It's to do with Christmas, funnily enough. And interestingly enough, not Danish at all. So this fella, who talks with great authority, I would have shared his video on here, but the last time I shared a video, which was the one we did Paddy the Baddie for Come At Me Bro, we got another copyright claim against that one.
Yeah, people just have no sense of humor.
They don't. Miserable this time, yeah. Miserable. All affected by the Facebook outage, no doubt. So Kris Kringle is actually a German expression, which means Christ child. If you think about it, that's where it comes from. Kringle or Kindle being the German word for child, and that's where it comes from. So it's not even Danish at all. So for this guy to be making these claims, really, really quite bold and not very factual. However, the idea of Santa Claus is involved, obviously, in Coca-Cola and the American ideology. So Santa Claus, I mean, that is sort of the very American, that's a very American way of saying it. I bet your brother's kids, when they were growing up, they would probably talk about Santa Claus, whereas we would discuss old Père Noël, Father Christmas, wouldn't we?
I don't know, actually. I think just Santa was, I think, what my kids always refer to him as. Not Santa Claus, maybe. No, definitely Santa rather than Father Christmas. But yes, I mean, I suppose if a grown-ups were talking about it, Father Christmas would be how we would term it.
Yeah, definitely. So Santa Claus made his way to the States with Dutch travelers when they emigrated to America in 1776, and they started celebrating this chap called Santa Claus, and they had the Feast of Santa Claus, round about sort of the December 25th time of the year is what we were celebrating in Europe. And so it actually comes from England, the idea of from Europe rather, to America, this idea of Santa Claus. So it's not something that even Coca-Cola invented, so that's 1774. And in fact, it wasn't uncommon to have Santa feature on commercial adverts from as early as 1820. So even before Coca-Cola existed. So they didn't even they weren't even the first people to use Santa Claus or Father Christmas or whatever you want to call it for marketing purposes. That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, given that, a high percentage of people that you ask would say that Coca-Cola invented Santa Claus. I mean, wasn't he also rather sort of more miserable and stern before Coca-Cola got their hands on him?
Well, this is the interesting thing now. So one thing that Coca-Cola did do, like you say, they did give him that red and white imagery based on, like you say, their label, the dynamic ribbon, which I believe is what they're called, their logo. So they gave them the red and the white coloring that we'll come to in a little bit. But prior to that, the thing about Santa Claus was everybody talked about Santa, and there's a very famous poem by Clement C. Moore, The Night Before Christmas, that everybody knows. And, I don't know about you, but I always read to my children on Christmas Eve. Probably been a while. I think, if you started reading that to Albert and Alice right now, they think you probably lost the plot on Christmas.
I might give it a go.
I tell you what, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I read it to my kids. They don't pay any attention whatsoever. They're all hyped up. It's a very nice pop-up book that I have that I read it out of, that I'm very protective of, that they virtually try and trash every single Christmas Eve. It's still somehow managed to survive. But yeah, so that's the very famous poem. And if you read through that, no mention of red and white. Is a jolly little elf with his reindeers is what they're talking about. And this is the thing. Prior to Santa being invented, as it were, by Coca Cola, there was no one homogenized image of Santa. There was no one image of Father Christmas. It was that sort of jaggedy, raggedy elf type character, like a peddler, like a homeless man almost. That this was this idea of this fellow who'd zip up and down chimneys delivering presents to children. But what he looked like didn't exist. You know, it varied from time to time as to who was sharing the story.
So it was just down to the imagination of the person telling the story, or how it had been told to them, which would have been just different everywhere. But was the core idea that he was giving presents to children that were good?
So this you know, the checking of the list twice, that features in the Clemency Moore poem. Well, even though, to be fair, it's a poem that's attributed to Clemency Moore, there's nothing to actually suggest that it was written by him. It was just believed to have been written by him. But I think there's an idea that maybe he'd taken the idea from other people and just advanced it a little bit, put it together. And the final version that we know now is that final version of the poem that Clemency Moore put together. So he might not necessarily have actually written the entire thing, but it is, you know, it was a story that was shared, you know, 'twas the night before Christmas and all through the house, not a creature was serving. You know the rest of it. Don't want to get hit by any more copyright claims.
I think you'd probably be safe on that one, to be fair. I think the author has been dead more than 50 years.
I imagine he has, yes. I imagine he has. Yeah, so in terms of the image of Santa Claus, though, we think about these people dressed up, you know, and you see them dressed up in malls where people will send their children to go sit on the knee. But prior to that, even in the 1890s, prior to the idea of this Santa Claus that Coca-Cola had created, the Salvation Army had adopted him and were sending people out dressed in the streets to go and collect money. So if you've ever seen any, like if you've seen Elf or any of the other famous Christmas movies made in America, you'll see the people with jangling normally the red bucket, going out collecting money. So the Salvation Army had also adopted Santa as an image, which again, so this idea that Santa Claus is entirely made up by Coca-Cola isn't true. However, the images you'll see behind me, if you're watching on the video now, the very chosen few who get to watch it because of the technical problems that the world appears to be having right now. This is the image of Santa that was created by a chap by the name of Haddon Sunbloom, and he was commissioned to draw Santa with a red and white, you know, jolly appearance by Coca-Cola. And do you know who he is based on then?
I have no idea.
He's based on Lou Prentice.
No idea who he is.
You wouldn't, because he's a friend of Haddon Sunbloom who got his friend Lou Prentice to pose for him. And that's what he looked like. He was a jolly fellow. And in fact, you know, it was that popular that Coca-Cola recommissioned him every single year for about 30 years. And in many occasions, all he'd do is draw over the picture he'd done the last year and try to slightly change it a little bit so he's holding the latest product.
And and he got paid just for basically updating the label and the shape of the bottle. The shape of the bottle hasn't really changed, does it? So
not really.
Just a bit of label.
That's it. Yeah, it's incredible, really. Yeah, so a very, very good piece of marketing. But do you know why? Do you know why Coca-Cola chose Santa to be there? You know, to be that iconic piece of marketing that they do every year.
Well, and you know, I mean, very simplistically, if he's known around the world, I wouldn't say everywhere, but he's widely known in a lot of countries as somebody who gives things to people to make them happy. So to align your product with that would make a lot of sense, I guess.
Well, it's very true. But the other side of it is, when you think about Coca-Cola, what do you think about? What time of year are you thinking about when you're thinking about having an ice cold Coke?
I'm glad you clarified that, because my first answer was obesity. Summer would be the summer when it's hot. You want a nice, cold, refreshing drink.
Exactly. And that was their problem. This is why Coca Cola started looking at what they can do in the wintertime, because basically their sales were slumping. When people thought about Coca Cola, they thought of a refreshing drink to have on a hot summer day. The last thing you want when it's snowing or pissing it down with rain is an ice cold Coke. Yeah, it's not going to warm you up. You want a hot drink. So they started looking, oh, well, our sales are slumping here. We need to do something. And what was popular about Christmas, or winter rather, and that was the Christmas period. And that's why they decided to target their marketing around Christmas to hopefully get that sales boost. And that's all it was. It was nothing to do with the idea of, well, it was in the end, but it was purely just to try and sell Coca-Cola in the wintertime, which previously they were unable to do because people just weren't buying it.
And I suppose that's quite a clever idea. You're associated not just with a character who is joyous and brings happiness to life and obesity to children, but it also brings their product into a season that they don't usually sell. That's pretty smart, to be fair.
It's a very clever piece of marketing, and then to have it so closely linked to Christmas as well. Because now when you think about Christmas, you think of the jolly guy with a white beard, but you're also seeing those Coca-Cola colors everywhere. So it's permanently blended, and those reds and those whites, they're everywhere this time of year. And also, what they do in the same way that Batman had a Robin, they try to introduce another character. Are you familiar with Sprite Boy?
Sprite Boy. No, is it related to the Bright Boy?
Sprite Boy.
Sprite, yeah, as in the drink Sprite.
No.
Oh,
He came to be before Sprite even existed.
No. So he was Santa's sidekick. Not an elf. Was he an elf?
He was an elf. He was a little sprite, which is another word for elf. So they introduced him. Although he was popular, they got rid of him in the late 1950s just because it just wasn't really working. He wasn't helping really sell the products. And he was, if you Google him, a bit of a creepy looking character, to be honest. But no, it's funny you mentioned Sprite. So Sprite was so they killed him off in 1959. Sprite, the drink, came to be in 1961, but was based on a clear Fanta product which had been developed in Germany. It was clear lemon and lime Fanta, and was brought about to compete with 7-Up, which was Pepsi's product, and that's why Sprite existed. But absolutely nothing to do with Sprite Boy, funnily enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I did not know Santa had a sidekick, because that was quite a long time then, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, so he ran for a number of years, but nowhere near as popular, obviously, as Santa. They tried it, nice little bit of marketing, didn't really work. I think basically they'd already established it with this, and when Hadden Sunbloom passed away, they still commissioned people to do the work based on this rather avuncular character that you've done, and now you'll see him adorning Christmas cards and adorning all sorts. We've got all sorts around our house that, especially from the 70s and 80s, that Christmas decorations that would have been passed down to us, made of cheap plastic, but has somehow managed to survive because it is indestructible.
And what do Coca-Cola, what do they say about this? Like on their own sort of website or literature, do they pass it off as they invented Santa, like people believe?
No. So this is just this fellow who claimed it, and he certainly made himself quite popular this Christmas. However, Coca-Cola will just tell you that basically they rebranded it. They're very proud to be associated with Christmas because it helps their sales. They've created this character of Santa, or the image of, they're responsible now for how we see Santa. So, the round table, as they're out visiting houses tonight as well, I believe they were down our road on Sunday, and they're responsible for the guy sat on the back there. That's how he's dressed up. We went to Winter Wonderland. We went to Lapland, UK a couple of weekends ago, where I picked up bloody COVID. I'm not blaming the people of Lapland. That's probably unrelated to them. And, and the guy who sat there, who did do a fabulous job, God bless him, especially to contend with our two blooming kids and a little nephew, Noah, as well. He did very, very well to contend with them. But the imagery that we saw of him is entirely created by Coca-Cola. And I would imagine, Hadden Sunbloom, the people at Coca-Cola who came up with the concept at the time, would be immensely proud of that, I would suggest.
Yeah, and I guess the fact that the myth perpetuates that Coca-Cola invented Santa, full stop. I suppose they don't need to overtly do away with that myth because it's not in their interest. As long as they don't promote it and endorse it, then they're in a win-win situation, aren't they?
That's it. That's it. And they've tightened their grip on Christmas as well since, because of the famous trucks. Those famous trucks. Can you get excited about a couple of juggernauts, David? People get very excited about those trucks.
No, I mean it's just going to be in the way for a start if it comes anywhere near my house.
Yeah, well, it would. You? To be fair, if you can get up and down and around your estate, then fair play. I don't think they take it down there though. But 1995 was when those trucks were introduced, so it's a much more modern concept. And those sort of famous trucks, which you can see, I know my wife's got a Coca Cola jumper, which I think she picked up in the Coca Cola store in Vegas with the Christmas truck on the front of it. So 1995 they were picked up. Never ever really expected to be anywhere near as popular as Santa. However, they were so popular that in 2001, Coca-Cola created a truck and was sending it around the States. And then it took a little bit longer to get to the UK, 2010, before the truck started to appear in the UK. And people will travel far and wide to go and see a juggernaut with Coca-Cola painted on the side of it.
Well, I was about to say, apart from it being a truck, like you see thousands of them every day if you drive on a motorway, branded as Coca-Cola. I mean, does it stop? Does it open? Does it give away free Coca-Cola or what?
Not that I know of. No, I imagine there's going to be some kind of promotion nearby in the place that it stops off at. But yeah, it's all lit up nicely. And to be fair, they look nice enough as far as a truck can look nice. Some people like them. I apologize to those folks who get their kicks from watching these things. But yeah, so Coca-Cola, as we've seen there, is very closely linked with Christmas. So that's it. That's all we had really for our episode. But I did think we'd spend a little bit of time looking at Tallboy Radio in 24 and 25, because it's one thing that we haven't done is a review episode. So I thought, why not chuck that in, mix it into this one. So I think we mentioned it on the last time out. So in 2023, we had 34 guests when we reviewed it for the year. And we said that tally was unbeatable. We felt it was unlikely to be beaten this year. We came very close.
How many?
We had 33 guests. So
new guests.
New guests, yeah. Sorry, yeah. So quite right. So 33 people who guested on the Tallboy Radio podcast who had never guested on it before. Yeah, so that was close. And in amongst that, we had 2 cancellations. So had those folks turned up, we would have had 35 people. Oh, in fact, 3 cancellations, 36 we would have done.
Yeah, I mean that's I think we said on a recent or future episode, depending on the order of recordings over this. Little inside information there, folks. We pre-record a few over Christmas because we want to spend time with our families and not each other on this podcast. So depending on whether this is last week or next week, yeah, we were talking about the fact that it's going on for 5 years, and you know, in the 5th year, to have that many guests is quite awesome, really.
It is. I mean, the first year that we did it, there was barely any. There was only about 4 or 5, and it's something that we've added since. And I look forward to doing it a lot next year. We've already got guests planned in for the start of next year. Only one of those is new, unfortunately. So we've got Steve coming in the first week of January, who we're recording with, about his gratitude jars. Then we have Sandra Thompson coming back. She's going to be giving us questions to ask about empathy. And then Vicky Campbell, who's one of those folks who unfortunately did cancel on us because there was confusion over the time zones. And she's going to be talking about adults with ADHD. Then Michael's back to talk a little bit more about futsal. And that's our first 4 guests in January.
Excellent. And no doubt we're going to get more queued up because, you know, I think it's great when we get guests on. We always learn something. You know, anyone that's listening to this, you know, if you yourself would like to come on the podcast, you know, get in touch. But also, if there's a topic that you want us to discuss. It doesn't matter what it is. We can go and find somebody and get them on this podcast. So feed in any ideas or suggestions.
Yeah, 100%. Drop us an email, mail@tallboyradio.com, and we will take those suggestions on board, and we will do an episode about it. Doesn't matter how daft your suggestion sounds. In fact, sometimes the dafter, the better. But one of our most popular episodes of this year is one that we recorded 2 years ago, and it was our Christmas episode, and Spotify Wrapped has just dropped. And it shared with us our most popular episode, which I think was number 118, which was the Malcott murder.
Really?
People have been listening to that one in droves. Yeah.
That's, I mean, people like true crime, don't they? And for us, it's not only true crime because it's in our living memory, but it's literally happened within eyesight of certainly my house and within a couple of miles of where you and Gaz live as well. So to have something local that's true crime and then gets picked up and is popular, as tragic as the events are, it's still pretty good because it's unsolved and more people listen to it. There might be a slight glimmer of hope that somebody decides that they're going to say something that they know.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I think for me, it was one of the proudest things that I guess I would say anything associated with the podcast, just purely and simply because we received an email from Deborah, who was the daughter of Steve, who was murdered. So the fact that she'd listened, so she didn't listen to it the first time around, but we reshared it out last year, and she got in touch and thanked us for our efforts in sort of keeping this close to people's memories, and our efforts are maybe trying to just jog somebody's memory still. That certainly for me, I thought it was really nice that she's taken the time, because she could have just heard it and moved on and just thought it's just a couple of guys who's just trying to create something that is popular. We're not, and if we were, we failed. But what I thought was nice is she recognizes actually, we were trying to do something important, and that she appreciates it because it is her father. And, although she was very young at the time and perhaps has very limited memories of him, I think she appreciates what we did. And I really appreciated her taking the time to drop us that email.
Yeah, that's really nice that happened. And it's important. We always say that, I mean, our episodes vary wildly from Room 101 and Come At Me Bro, which is just ludicrous nonsense, through to the Malcott episode, but then all the charities that we have on, or global issues, environment, homelessness. There's just tons of stuff, whole wide spectrum of things. And it's when it gets recognized by somebody, particularly somebody that's affected by the episode, I mean, that is pretty special.
It is. It really is. And one of the things that we touched on this year, more than we've touched on any other year as well, is politics. And our politics episodes have been very, very popular. You can sort of see the spikes in listens, funnily enough. And it's been an unusual year in terms of our listening figures, because what I've generally found was the stuff that we were putting out this time last year, or in the last 12 months, people are still really, really listening to the stuff that we created in 2023. Listening to those specific episodes skyrocketed. And I don't know why. But in some weeks when you will get more people listening to one episode that we recorded in 2023 than what we'd put out that week that's like fresh and live and about politics.
Yeah. Well, I guess when it's algorithms, isn't it? When things are popular, they get more chance. They get more sort of prominent in the search results when people are looking, and therefore it can cascade and popularity can continue. So it's not surprising in a way, knowing how, or not knowing how, but knowing the concept behind algorithms and the way they want to push popular content. But equally, people do like a good argument, don't they? And when it comes to politics, as we always say, the three of us are quite similar in lots of ways, but we're quite different in lots of ways as well. And we're always up for a good debate. It gets a bit feisty sometimes.
Yeah.
A good argument, yeah. The 5 minute or the full half hour, I don't know.
That's probably wasting on people who aren't fans of the Monty Python's Flying Circus. So we started off 2024. We started off 2024 with the Heathers, if you remember. Those are the first people we had as guests on in at the start of this year. So Wayne and Jessica Heather, two people who travel the world, and actually they've gone on from strength to strength. They've been, Jessica's been sharing their stuff on Instagram when it's working, and they've had free holidays. They've been in San Antonio, where I was in San Antonio earlier in the year. They got a free holiday out there. I'm not jealous of that at all. They've been on cruises. They've had, had all sorts of free holidays, a couple of times to America as well. So it just goes to show what you can do when you guest on Tallboy Radio, and we give you that boost and that lift, because we are entirely responsible for their pop. No, I'm joking. We're not responsible for their popularity. So what are you thinking for 2025? What do we want to see more of? What do we want to start doing?
Well, we definitely want more guests, definitely more, extend that variety. We'll definitely get charities and people's with a cause on. Anything that's interesting to the three of us, first and foremost. We always say that's why we do it. We do it to hang out with each other and to learn and educate ourselves. And if that's a benefit to our listeners, that's great as well. That's a bonus. But we don't go out to do something specific to generate listeners. That's not what we're about. If it happens, it's great. And we've definitely got to do the live episodes, and we've had a few where we've been invited, and I can't remember the name of the one that particularly said she was going to take us to a haunting, or not a haunting, what's it called, a
haunted price. So that was Liz Leguinis Cornwell, I think her name was. So
Yeah.
yes, and Lee from the Boo Brothers also said that he was going to put something together for us. So that's one to look out for. I'll drop him a message in early 25 and see if we can't get that organised. The other one I like to do as well, we did it a couple of times this year when your brother was over. We all got ourselves together in the same room. We sat down, drank an awful lot of whiskey, and ate some oatcakes. And I quite like it. I quite like it when we're all in the same room, and it's easier. Now, Gaz and I normally record in the same room, and it's easy to tell, when he's about to say something. It's because he's done probably shut up. But you can, when he briefly pauses for breath, you can dive in there. You know what I mean? When you sat next to him, and try and get a word in edgewise. But yeah, so when we had Steve over, he told him to shut up on several occasions, so we could do Steve back as well, can't we?
Yeah, that was quite funny, actually. I remember it now. You've said it. Yeah, you basically just told him to shut up because he was speaking. But yeah, when we're all in the same room, that's always good as well, because it's a different vibe, it's a different feeling to what's going on. So yeah, definitely get some of them in. Yeah,
we did the best of the black stuff as well, where we tested Guinness. So we'll need to do some more tasting stuff. The wine episode was one that we proved popular from the year before, where we tasted the celebrity wine. So maybe we'll do another wine tasting one, and maybe I won't get absolutely mullered and have to go straight to bed afterwards.
Well, I'll be alcohol free. Well, no, I actually tasted them. I just didn't drink them. I tasted them, but I didn't actually finish the rest of the several bottles like you and Gaz did. And we can always there's other stuff that we could look at taste. It doesn't have to be alcohol. I mean, you and Gaz may differ, but we could always get into tasting other things,
Yeah, taste it with alcohol, whatever it is.
What's the best beer to dip your rich tea biscuits into?
Well, funnily enough, this is one of the suggestions. So I got a good friend Bill who listens to a lot of our episodes. I don't think we've given him a shout out in a while, but I'll give him a shout out. He suggested like flavor pairings. So pairing, whether that be wine or whiskey or beer, but the perfect food to pair with it. So maybe we'll do a culinary episode out of the kitchen.
Yeah, and maybe you can get Mr. Biggs in to do the cooking.
Oh no, there's a thought.
He can do the tasting as well, But he was great to have on the podcast. So if we can get the kitchen on the go, bring him in, that'd be good.
That's a good shout, actually. Yeah, if we get him to do a barbecue episode in the summertime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If
we can get the outside mic sorted. Your last couple out in the gardens had a bit of an audio issue.
Yeah, that was Pete, though. He was very quiet. God bless him.
But yeah, yeah, we'll do that. Get Mr. Biggs on the barbecue. That'd be good.
There you go. Something to look forward to in 2025. So that's it. That wraps up our last recording session of 2024. So it just leaves me to leave it to Dave to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, look, folks, anyone that listens to this knows that I'm not a big fan of Christmas. I dislike almost every aspect apart from the bit that involves spending quality time with your family and your friends. And perhaps if you've got the capacity, looking out for those that maybe don't have anybody around them to help. So if you've got the time to, lots of charities out there that will welcome help over Christmas. Find a bit of time to do that, and then spend some quality time with your friends and family. Take a bit of time for yourself as well. You don't need the presents. You don't need the Christmas lights. You don't need the excess of food. You don't need the excess of booze. You don't need all that other stuff. Just think of your family and those that you can help. And look, we'll have a great one. And we'll see you next year.
Indeed, indeed. Really important as well, like you say. If you are spending Christmas by yourself, reach out to the Samaritans, reach out to somebody, drop us an email. We'll get back to you, I promise you on that, or we'll put you in touch with somebody who's much more useful to speak to on these subjects than we are. But have yourself a very Merry Christmas, and we will see you when we're having a happy New Year.